Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Medaka Kuroiwa is Impervious to My Charm, Season 1, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I was bringing up someone was definitely going to get sick by the way last episode ends, but I can't remember if I thought it was going to be all three of them. I feel like out of anyone, it was most because Asahi was just sitting out. I don't think she was outside in the rain. I think she was under like an awning. But like Medaka had run away, and then the episode ended with like Mona running out in the rain. So I thought maybe in her in particular being sick, which she ended up not being sick, but ultimately she ended up getting sick at the end of the episode. But still, so I wasn't expecting this. It wasn't until I saw the episode title I was like, oh, this is a nursing episode because Medaka is the one that's sick, and so Mona, sees that he's not at school and she initially thinks like, well, he ran out in the rain because he probably got sick trying to run away from Asahi, which is like, I wasn't expecting her to be so bold. But then she also starts thinking like, well, Medaka wasn't completely under the umbrella when we were walking together. So she kind of is like, well, I'm the one that created that situation, because it was for my own selfishness. It wasn't me just trying to help out Medaka. It was me trying to like worm my way into charming him. So I feel a little responsible. But then Asahi feels the same way too, considering she's like, well, I tried to play things up the way I did, and I might be the reason why. So both of them feeling respectively like, responsible for his situation. So, Mona hears from like the classmates like, oh, Medaka lives alone, and it's like, oh, let's go check him out. Well, one of his friends is like, man, like if it was a girl, sure, but I don't want to go to like some sick dude's place. But it's like, all right, let's just check up on him, make sure he's okay. And Mona feels like this will be her opportunity. She like follows them to Medaka's place. I don't know if because Medaka never called. Mona never called Asahi out, but like, how did Asahi find her way to Medaka's place? We never got an answer to that. So she must have been following you because she must have saw you leaving. And she's like, where's she going? And then she saw what you were doing immediately. So she's like, oh, you're following them to... So she kind of followed them to Medaka's house. Once again, Mona was so caught up in her own like embarrassment of, oh my God, you caught me red-handed, that she never questioned like, well, how did you know? Because she hasn't had conversations enough with Medaka to know where he lives. So once again, I think that's so fascinating considering like we never really see Medaka interact with anyone. So it's one of those things where it probably happens, those conversations happen in between episodes and stuff. But I mean, the two dudes, it's like he talks to them enough, at least in the confines of the episodes of what we see. But like storytelling wise, we never really see him interact with anyone. So for them to actually know his address, I mean, they could have easily asked someone at school, like a teacher or somebody official, to know where his address was just for that case. But who knows? Either way, she was looking at this golden opportunity like, oh yeah, I'm going to worm my way into his heart. And then Asahi, which I think is so interesting because she has such a brash, like, brash isn't the right word, but she has a very specific personality. Even though Mona is her senior, it's still the situation of like, especially that movement of just like, she came across Mona like just staying a couple steps behind the guys as they go to Medaka's place, and she's like leaning her elbow on her, like showing no respect at all. Because she is also the person that also calls Mona out later, or she's like, stop doing that, because she can kind of tell Mona's faking it, the whole like cute act. She's almost like, she doesn't directly say it, but she's kind of like, stop that, cut that out. Like, I know you're putting on a performance to some extent. Just stop. Like, why are you doing that? But it's like, yeah, she has such a tough exterior, but like that all kind of crumbles away when it comes to Medaka. Like, as we saw last episode, she like legitimately crumbles apart and doesn't know how to act in front of Medaka. So they come to his place, which obviously he is not well equipped for this because it's the first time he's ever had girls over to his place / rooms, where it's like, dude, this is too much. This is wild. He's like, you guys, I appreciate you stopping by, but you kind of don't need to be here. But they're kind of wanting to nurse him back to health, obviously that was intended to be said because they end up making him some meals. I guess Asahi's never really cooked before, whatever, because she's trying to cut the apples, but she's going about it the worst way. And Medaka's like, let them know. Mona's like, you let me teach you how to properly hold a knife, which obviously honestly, she doesn't appreciate, like, I needed her help for everything to figure this out, but it's like, I'm a score point here, so, but then Mona wants to feed him. He's like, no, 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 I can feed myself. And so Mona dresses up like a nurse, and it's just like, oh boy, here we go. Has the audacity to have the thermometer between her boobs, but then you have Asahi showing her up by coming dressed as a doctor. I'm like, did you just have that on you? But we find out, no, Mona took a couple costumes. The one was the nurse and the other one was the doctor, and Asahi just grabbed the doctor stuff out of her bag, and she says, you're going to snatch stuff, you're going to touch someone's stuff without their permission. But now it's like, wait, was the doctor role the better role? Should I have gone with the doctor instead of the nurse? Because it seems like this is really working. I love that whole bit, especially because, like, because even though the males in her classroom, like last episode, they were watching a woman in very like revealing clothing and just kind of showing off her cleavage and stuff. And what did Asahi do? She did that exact same thing. When it came to this episode, they were watching someone in cosplay and stuff like that. And she's kind of like, that's stupid, and then proceeded to utilize it in this particular case. The problem is, I was kind of worried that, like, it does seem like Medaka was getting worse rather than better, and even they kind of have to apologize later on, like, sorry, because we realize we're kind of making you worse, because they're like putting these cooling pads on him, but they put a whole bunch on him. He's like, I don't even know if I'm hot or cold anymore, and it's just like, he can't rest. He's too much of a nervous wreck because these two women are here, or girls are here taking care of him, so it's a lot on his heart and his sensibility. I mean, he doesn't even have the strength to do the whole, like, you know, his typical mantra. He doesn't even say it at all this episode because he's not in the right headspace. He's sick. He's probably loopy a little bit. So he'd even hugged Mona at one point in time and called her, like, what was it, like Toma or something like that. And we know he has like a thing for cats, so I wonder if that's like a family pet or something that he was referencing when he was hugging her, because he was referencing like fur and stuff, and like we know in the first episode he was watching and like liking stuff on it, like on social media based around cats. So I can only assume that's what that was in reference to. But we kind of learned a little bit more about Asahi's situation on why she likes Medaka. Like I said, I kept being like, okay, is it a thing of she likes him and he like doesn't remember her, but she remembers him type of thing? Like they ran across each other some years ago and now they ran into each other again. That was my running theory. It is a love at first sight situation, but like, yeah, like she overheard a girl talking about this. She's like, oh, that's complete BS. And then she immediately ran into Medaka and like her heart started beating like crazy. And so for her, that's all it took. And she's a lot more upfront about her feelings, because Mona is having to contend with the fact is, wait, that's it? You just like him? That's why you've turned into my greatest nemesis? Like, I'm going to lose out this battle simply because you like him? And it's just like, yeah, that's all there is to it. But even she was like, what do you mean that's all? Yes, I like him, you know? Which, because for Mona, it's a thing of, well, I don't like him. I'm just trying to win him over just to prove a point. So I don't actually like him. But it still doesn't change the fact is I'm not going to lose to you. I'm not going to take this opportunity to leave you alone with Medaka, because who knows like what you could end up doing in that moment, which is ironic considering she went to go get drinks and she immediately told she told Mona not to get too close to Medaka. Don't try and make any moves. Don't try and jump him. Because, you know, for her, it's like, she wants the whole 9 yards. Asahi does. She's like, I want to go out with him. I want to hold hands and, you know, potentially kiss and stuff. So you're like, wow. She's very upfront. I mean, I think it's that, you know, that typical, you know, cliche thing in romance and anime and manga where it's like, well, I mean, I think it's applicable to a lot of stuff, but it's turned up to the 10th degree, it's to the 10th power. Like it's 1,000% more in anime and manga, the whole like not being able to confess your feelings to the person you want to, but like to someone else you can. It's funny, she ends up even it being like, why am I telling you out of anyone that like I feel this way about Medaka? But Mona goes over to him and the whole hug situation happens, and then she's looking at him and his lips. And she actually does for a second like lean in and thinking about kissing him, but then she's like, wait a minute, what the hell is wrong with me? Why was I about to do that? But then Asahi comes in and catches her, and it's like, well, we don't know in what, I mean, Asahi calls her out, but it's like, at what part did Asahi come in? Did she come in just when she was leaning in, or when she pulled back? I'd assume pushing in, just because Asahi was like, "Wait, what? I saw you tried to kiss him. I knew it. You're trying to get with him." But Mona's like, "No, that's not the case." She's like, "I mean, yes, I was trying to kiss him, but I wasn't in my right mind. I don't know what that was all about." And then ultimately, what shocked me was Mona telling the truth. She's like, "I'm only going after him because he won't like acknowledge my charms." And that's on, like, basically she told her the plot where it's like, "I'm just trying to get him to fall for me. I don't actually like him." And then Asahi was like, "Wait, what?" I was not expecting that sequence to play out the way it did. Because, I mean, when Mona tried to play it out, she's like, "Oh, I didn't, I'm just, I'm kidding." But I thought Asahi was going to be upset, because for her, it's like, my feelings for him are genuine and it's just a game to you. But Asahi's like, "Wait, did she mean that?" She was like, because at first she was just kind of like, "Wait, well, what she's saying is she can't." I believe the sincerity, so she's not lying right now. But it's also the thing of, but I do kind of get the feeling she has feelings for Medaka. And then it kind of crosses Asahi's mind where she's like, "Wait, does she not realize how she feels about him?" So I thought that was kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting that to be like Asahi's takeaway from that. That was really surprising. And so Asahi's like, well, I guess kind of continues to look at her as competition. So it's like, right, now I got to deal with her liking the same guy that I like. But it's like, hey, going forward, I won't say anything to anyone. Like what you just said, I'll keep it to myself. Because obviously, like, it would change the way a lot of people see Mona if they heard that was like her main reason for being nice to Medaka. And even if you told Medaka that, it would kind of screw up things between it. I get the feeling like she's going to be truthful about that, but I could definitely see a later story beat of her, for whatever reason, like either accidentally telling, like she'll say it to somebody and Medaka will overhear it and find out, or it's going to be a situation where she gets frustrated and blabs that by accident. Like, I feel like that feels like that's room for a potential future story arc, is that, and getting over that hump of that information. Maybe, maybe not. But for her, it's like, right, if I'm going to win Medaka, because I clearly see that you like him, even though you haven't figured out how you feel about him, but I clearly know I like him. And so I want this to be fair, so I won't tell anyone what we said, so I won't lose. So they took care of Medaka until his temperature went down. They left him the porridge and the apples. And I love that when they're in the classroom the next day, Asahi's like, so I wonder if Medaka is okay and healthy and he's coming to school. Mona isn't saying anything, but it's Asahi verbalizing, me like, I know I'm saying exactly what you're thinking. And the thing is, she is reading Mona to filth. Like, she like has a really good sense on whom Mona is, because she's even saying, like, right in your head, she's like, you could go ahead and just call me Asahi, because I guarantee you in your head you're already calling me Asahi, so you can just drop the honorifics when we're talking naturally. And then Mona was just kind of like, because it's exactly what was happening. I was like, I love that. She knows you so well, because she's like, yeah. And once again, her demeanor around Mona is so, she seems to have that same demeanor around other people. We haven't really seen Asahi interact with anyone outside of her friend. But yeah, she seems to have that kind of, like, once again, the what was the name? Kudere, the cool, like, cold personality. She kind of has that with everyone. Once again, she, like, crumbles a little bit when it comes to Medaka. And I just casually drops the fact is that her and Mona went over to Medaka's place, and they're like, "Oh, right, you went to visit him too? I didn't know you know where he lived." And then Mona's looking at her like, shut up. Why are you running your mouth about all this? And I love that Tsubomi's only takeaway from all this is, what's going on? They were love rivals at one point in time, but it seems like they've gotten so close. And for her, it's like, she is over there calling her Asahi. She hasn't even got to the point she calls me Tsubomi. I've got to, like, jump on this. And she's like, I want to be mixed up in the fun. And she calls her, like, by her last name. And it's just like, oh, I want us to be closer. It's such an interesting thing, because it's a love triangle going on between unbeknownst to Medaka, there's a love triangle involving him and Asahi and Mona, but then there's also Tsubomi in that love triangle, but she's coming at it from the perspective of, I want to get closer to Mona, but I also want to support Mona and the whole Medaka thing, but I see that Mona and Tsubomi are getting, Mona and Asahi are getting closer together, even though you guys are love rivals in your love triangle, and I kind of want to be in the middle of it because I want to get closer to you like you've gotten closer to your love, right? So that's a whole thing. And I love, once again, I love that that's just Tsubomi's only takeaway from this whole situation, was just kind of like, as we know, as we clearly know, she's completely and utterly obsessed with, it's a weird reference to make. If you've ever read or watched Rosario plus Vampire, I'm blanking on her name. Was it something with a Y? There's like, because I know there's two witches. I know one of them, I think her name was Ruby. I can't remember the other witch's name, but she's like a smaller witch. She's in love with like Sukun and Mona, specifically Mona. So she wants to basically be in a throuple with Sukun and Mona. And that's kind of like her arc. Whereas like all the other girls want to just be in a one-on-one relationship with Sukun. She's the only one that's like, oh, I'm perfectly fine with us being a throuple, So it almost feels like Tsubomi kind of fills that role, not to that extent, sure. Like I said, she's just being a supporter for Mona, but she kind of feels a similar role in an interesting way. So, but when it's all said and done, Medaka shows up at school and he tries to talk to Mona, but she gets so embarrassed that she keeps turning him down every step of the way. It's like, okay, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to do better. Nope, I'm going to avoid him. I'm going to do it this time. Nope, I'm going to avoid him. She does it over and over again till she accidentally bumps into him. And the moment she tries to run away when he tries to talk to her, she passes out because she got sick. Now, has all her behavior been her being sick? Maybe, it makes sense. You spent enough time with him, you ended up accidentally getting sick, That's how that typically goes. So she was probably sick the entire time. It finally hit her now. But yeah, she wakes up and Medaka's looking after her. He's like, oh, like the nurse will be back. He's just like, but basically the only thing he wanted to tell her was like, thank you for taking care of me. And then he bounces, But, for Mona, it's just kind of like, man, he's so earnest, and it's just kind of like, then she's falling for him more and more with time passing by. So no matter how much she tries to deny it, she slowly, but she's still in the denial phase of figuring out how she feels, which is so, once again, interesting considering like Asahi's so clear. I'm like, no, I like him. This is this. And so, yeah, some very, very fascinating developments. I'm curious to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, especially with, because of what Asahi said. Because like Tsubomi was one thing that she could kind of ignore, but now that she's confessed everything to Asahi and then Asahi still throwing that in your face, kind of now she's thinking about it more and more, just like the kiss thing. So it's like, I think it's going to become more and more clearer as we go forward. I think we're kind of at the halfway point in the season. I believe this season's only 12 episodes, if I'm not mistaken. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.